Juggalos in recovery. Juggalos in recovery. Juggalos in recovery.
Oh
Dope.
yeah.
Did it just go, oh yeah, at us?
No, that was
was
just
me.
D.
All right, so we should be recording. Yeah, it's recording. All right. Fantastic. So I could read this little story that I picked out if you guys like, and then we can just go from there.
All right.
If you want. Yeah. So I like the Grapevine. It has a lot of really good stories. I read these when it helps you put for some perspective, and it gives you the reason why wanted to do these Sunday story times is I really like the stories because everybody has something to relate to. This is a really short one, and I'll wait for Josie to get on. Make sure she can hear us and stuff. Josie, are you able to hear us?
Josie is bad at technology.
She said yes in the chat. We're good.
No,
All right,
I'm
cool.
not bad at technology. I'm just slow today. So there you go.
Now she can speak.
Well, thank you for joining.
You talk
Awesome.
shit to Josie, then she'll answer without a text.
Exactly.
Good job, Chris.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. So I was just saying that I did agree to do the Sunday story times because I do like different stories that you can pick something out of everybody's story, and it relates to you. And this one I found in the AA Grapevine one, and it's a short one, but it's called The Final Wipeout. And it says, I just read an issue from 2007. I'm a real fan of Grapevine. I was 25 back then, living in Ventura, California. What an amazing place and time that was. Yeah, that'd be dope back then. That year was when I started drinking heavily. I was an avid skateboarder, and drinking was part of the lifestyle. Our favorite skateboarders were known as the Puss Drunks. For years, we looked up to them. That's not the reason I'm an alcoholic, though. I believe it was always in me. Drinking became an everyday thing back then. I never envisioned I'd become an alcoholic 10 years later, and wow, it was so different. Many of my friends were leading normal lives. They had kids, good jobs, college educations, but not me. I was in and out of relationships, which I messed up a lot of the time. I bounced in and out of jobs, attempted college twice, and got 6 DWIs. I also suffered a horrible head injury, skateboarding that left me comatose in the ICU. That's insane, right? The real insanity is that it took so many mistakes for me to finally give up and join AA. I'm in my mid 30s. Looking back on those times seems so unreal. I guess what I'm trying to say is be careful of the people and lifestyles you look up to. I know that it's hard to get through to an alcoholic, but I feel this can help even one person. Then writing this story is worth it. My life is so different now, and I want to help as many people as I can these days. And guess what? Helping others helps me. So the reason why I grabbed that story is because, helping others is what this group is about. And that's why I wanted to host these meetings with the Juggalos in recovery, because I feel like this is a group that could use a lot of help, and I can, apply my skills in my recovery to a lot of it. As far as like being aware, being aware of who you look up to growing up. I mean, that's kind of hard as a kid. You'll never really know, what the end result's going to be, right? This guy, he may not have been an alcoholic in the end, but it turns out he was. So, yeah, for me, this story is just cool because, it just shows that it is possible to recover, you know, if you find if you really want it, right? And then helping others. That's what I've been trying to do. I've been really struggling with the holidays and the stress of everything that's like coming up. And that's just been my main focus, is trying to help others in the neighborhood and in the program. So yeah, that's the story. If anybody wants to share on that or anything, please do.
So that was actually awkwardly similar to a lot of my own origin stories. At 25, I had built an electric skateboard and got into a pretty massive accident and ended up cracking my skull and have bleeding on the brain for a solid week. And that sucked, but I was sober then. I'm still sober now. That's the only real difference. Also, not in fucking California.
Yeah.
D, say some shit.
D, say some shit. Some shit. I mean, I don't know, man. I come from like a divorced home. And I was like a street kid. I don't know if I really had anybody I really like looked up to when I was younger. If that makes any sense. That's kind of like raised in the system that America's created for addicts and alcoholics and troubled people. So where I can relate to is the amount of mistakes I had to make to learn that the things I was doing were never going to lead to anywhere good when it came to the drinking and drugging and the criminal life choices and the stuff. And you know, you'd figure like one, you know, like a couple slaps on the wrist or a DUI or a year in juvie or something would get you right. That didn't get me right. You'd figure facing 15 years to a life sentence and escaping that would and only getting 4 would get you right. But it took me until like I was just like so emotionally and spiritually broken on the inside um to decide to do something different. So like the story just shows me, just like my own story, no matter like how hard you have to fall, there is a way out and a way to come back. And never did I want to live a sober lifestyle when I was out there. It was the last thing I wanted to do was try to work any type of program to make my life better. I just wanted to drink and drug like normal people did, but I can't do that. And once I could live with the fact that I just wasn't like normal people, it came a lot easier to accepting a different way of life that has actually been better than anything I could have imagined it would be, you know? And I'm glad I gave a different way of life a shot, because if not, I would just be homeless or in prison or just doing the same shit I always did. I'm just glad I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know, I feel like that has a lot to say about who we look up to in our childhood or who we choose to have as role models. Probably does influence us to an extent. But I also feel like it opens up the ability for us to learn from a lot of their very public mistakes, especially when you choose somebody that's super famous. And, you know, almost all of us looked up to a rock star at one point in time. And every rock star has had some kind of very public debacle where they were involved in drugs or alcohol and made very poor decisions. So, you know, if you're stable in your life and you have the ability to learn from other people's mistakes, you have a huge possibility of never repeating those mistakes from others. But most of us end up just making all of the mistakes that everybody else made and all of our own and still not learning a whole lot from them. Josie is looking very smug, like I just called her out.
What? What did I do? Oh, by the
Nothing,
way,
Jack Skeleton. He did nothing.
Oh, that
nothing.
turned out really nice.
Yeah, red.
I like it.
Oh, change. Can't do anything else. Dyed the fucking hair. I probably have an ear infection again, but I'm sober, and therefore dyed hair
Ear
because ear infections are dumb.
Josie, tell me a story about one of your childhood role models.
No, not going there because I will start crying
Okay.
and I don't want to right now.
But you could be a squirt gun.
What?
Squirt gun.
What about a squirt gun? Yeah, there's a lot of squirt
You
guns.
be the
Squirt
squirt
gun and
gun and cry
fireworks.
at things.
Dumb.
Okay. You're not good at this.
So
D, tell me about your role models.
My role models?
Sure.
I don't know. Like I said, I didn't really have like role models like that. I did hang out with a lot of older kids. They were all criminals and addicts and drug dealers and partiers and uh, punk rockers and goth kids. I don't know. I hung out with a lot of older kids that were influential to me. None of them were like a role. I listened to a lot of different music. I couldn't say any of the music is, made me like were role models to me. It was just what I was into. So, like I said, my parents got divorced when I was like 12, bro. Like, so my dad was on drugs and alcohol most of my life till my parents got divorced, and the streets were where I found myself. Kids, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I guess there were role models in a sense because I ended up inevitably doing all the same shit they did, but none of it was good. I
so
think if
yeah,
anything, the lack of a mature adult figure in my life is part of who I was
yeah.
growing up.
I would agree that I necessarily didn't have like a role model of sorts, but I remember the first like really super famous person that I really actually like looked up to a lot was, fucking Kurt Cobain, right? And so like I remember when he died and that shit was like, okay, and then you look at all the other celebrities in that age range of the 27 club that died, right? And so the entire time I was growing up, Buck, just fucked up or whatever, like I figured there was no way I was gonna live past 27. Um, but shit, man, in a week I'm gonna be 42. So uh yeah, definitely survived that 27 club, right? But that was the first time that somebody I like kind of looked up to that was famous, like really made some, obviously public, you know, yeah, that was just, I don't know if you all remember that, but it's pretty much burned into my memory when I was growing up because I listened to Nirvana a lot and whatever. And
Oh, I remember that day clear as day.
yep,
I still
crazy.
think Courtney Love did it.
Yeah, they still think she did it, and who the fuck knows, man? It's weird. Like you read those conspiracy things, and it's like, yeah, it kind of sounds like she did do it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you want to say is like the major takeaway from your grapevine story?
In the end, man, for me in that story is he's sober and he's here to help people, and that's what I would really venture to do is you can't do this alone. And if I can help just one person, like this is going to be on YouTube. Hopefully somebody watches it and picks up those little seeds, man. And I've hopefully helped at least one person uh, by the time I'm out of this place, So that's my
Right. Oh, that's part of why we do what we do is to put it out there for other people that need it. But that actually touches on what my meeting topic is going to be on Wednesday, which is what it's like for us when we start to grow past the fact of struggling and end up being that inspiration or role model for others. You think that's something that's happened to you, Nate?
yeah, I
It's
do actually.
definitely something that's happened to me too. I would say I started having role models more when I got sober than I did throughout my whole lifetime. You know what I mean? My lifetime, I just felt like a loner. I listened to music. I used music to relate to others that felt the same things. And I would say in sobriety is when I started finding people that inspired me, that I wanted to be more like, that were actually like role models in my life.
So how cool is it going from a fuck up to a role model?
Awkward still, unbelievable still. Um, Great
Yeah, man.
sometimes. Like, I'd say this year, my birthday was Friday, was the first year I had like 30 plus people message me, and I haven't even checked my Facebook yet to see who said hi through there, but like actually physically texting me on my phone. I'm like, that's fucking weird. But I liked it. People actually thought about it. That's usually something that was furthest from people's mind that was involving something bad.
Yeah, when people tell me that I like inspire them or whatever the fuck, like I'm like, yeah, right. I'm
Make,
still in my head, like, yeah, yeah, fuck you. I didn't inspire you. What are you talking about? But that's cool. It is cool to be able to have that. He said to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's kind of a cool transition. It's definitely something I never saw coming.
right.
it's definitely better to be known as somebody as a good person that you can look up to than to be known as the degenerate fuck up that you were. When you were known like, hey, if you need something bad done for you, if you're looking for something or you need some help doing something criminal, go talk to that guy.
Yeah.
It's better like having somebody go like, hey, if you're looking for advice or suggestions with life or how to do this thing sober and X, Y, and Z, or go talk to that guy. That guy's been through it all. And look at X, Y, and Z now. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good type of feeling right there.
Yeah, for sure. So
Well, Josie, you got anything to say, or are you too busy driving?
I am sitting here, but I was in one spot. I was trying to say, why can't I zoom on the damn tree to show that the leaves were blowing? Because that is sitting in one spot, not moving at all. The wind is freaking insane.
Frank, go to bed.
Yeah, why are good morning, good
No,
night?
today it's early for him because it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is earlier than his normal meeting. So
Well, that means he's still at work. Probably won't even talk at us.
yeah, you will. Go ahead and tell him what the topic's on. Sure, he has
I've been
something to
muted.
share.
I'm at work. We're not doing shit. So what's the topic?
well, I read a story from the grapevine, and basically to sum it up, it was this dude got sober after years of fucking up and looking up to the wrong people, and now his main goal is just to help others in sobriety. So we went over like some of maybe the like role models that we might have had that we looked up to, and then you know like where we're at about on helping people. And we are just saying just now that it's pretty it's wild to me and to Brian that we we have anybody that actually looks up to us or looks to us for advice. But it is also really cool at the same time. So for me, it's weird. Still, I'm going to be on 5 years, hopefully, sober, and yeah, it's definitely weird.
Frank, talk to us about being role models.
The who?
No, first tell us your role models and how they impacted your life growing up.
My role models. So it's weird. My role models. My childhood was kind of fucked up. People who, well, first off, my mother was mentally ill, in and out of mental hospitals and halfway houses and stuff. And then I was adopted by her brother and his wife, and it was a very abusive household. So if I had to look up to anybody while I was growing up, it was probably my grandparents and maybe an uncle. There was one uncle. My uncle I was adopted by his wife's brother, Kevin. He meant a lot to me. He taught me how to start working on things. That's always been a big. I've always enjoyed fixing things. He taught me how to wire outlets and do sheetrock and flooring and you name it. He was always working. And my grandparents, they were the only truly nice people in my life. So I would say they were probably my role models growing up. But after I joined the military, I didn't really have any role models. I was just too focused on, I wasn't really focused. I was a very lost person. I was trying to find my way. I was escaping from my childhood. So I didn't really know what to do or who to look for or what to look at. Um, it was weird. I would find people who were lost and broken like me and hang out with them. You know, misery loves company. And then I got sober. And I got sober through AA. And I still remember my very first AA meeting. I was already 2 weeks sober before I walked into the rooms. And I walk up, there was this older guy sitting on a picnic table outside smoking a cigar. I was like, "Is this AA?" And he said, "Yep." I walk in, I look at some pamphlets, grab some pamphlets, and go sit down on the furthest away from the table as I possibly could. They had benches along the walls. And the way this AA group ran, in the very beginning of the meeting, they ask if there's any newcomers, and if there's newcomers, they have a first step meeting. So I said it was my very first AA meeting, and they said, "Well, we're gonna have a first step meeting." I didn't know what the hell that was. So I just sat there and listened to all of these people's stories about how they hit rock bottom. And the chair of the meeting was an old guy I talked to outside. And during that meeting, I was shocked at these complete strangers I didn't even know existed had a similar story to mine. And it got to me, I was the last one. And in that moment, I had a decision that was the easiest decision of my life, is to start telling my story. And I told them what had happened 2 weeks prior, how I got blackout drunk and I beat up my girlfriend and I was in jail and I drove drunk and I was arrested and I was in jail for a couple days, and I just told them how basically shitty my life was, what led me up to that point, and I just started bawling. And then I stuck around and I clinged to that old guy, ended up being my sponsor. I asked him to be my sponsor. And he's a very unique person. He lives by himself. He's not married, girlfriends here and there, but not married. But he was happy. The people I look up to now are the people who don't require things. They don't require material to be happy. It's the people who reach out and help those and help themselves, more importantly, to make sure that their life is something worth living, and that those people are the people I look up to. I don't have certain specific people. I just get reminded by God, higher power, the carnival, whatever you want to call it today, that my life is worth living and it's worth living in a happy manner. I don't need to have a name to my role model. I just need to have a goal, and my goal is to be happy.
Yeah, man, I'll add on to that last part. I'm telling you, like, it's been a fucking struggle the last few weeks just to be happy. And I think my, you know, like being sober, like I haven't thought about drinking or whatever, but I have this like seasonal depression shit going on where it's like that is my main goal. I like how you put on that you don't need necessarily a role model to look up to just to be happy. That's what I need in my life is, and it's not necessarily a destination. It's just, it's a state of mind. It's where I want to be at. I want to be happy. So, yeah, it's a good share.
Well, then you got the other part of that that story about how people look up to you now. I've been told by many different people that I'm the face of Juggalos in recovery. A lot of people look up to me, and I don't even know their name. It's a lot of pressure if you want to look really big and deep into it. I have to live a life to be able to motivate these people to stay alive, to live happy. And I'm only a human being. And that's it. I'm no one special. I'm a person who had a rough life, who decided to get sober a year after my mother died. I started a Facebook group that turned into this. My message is the same as everybody else's message. I may deliver it differently. I may be a part of a different community, but you can get the same information out of talking to me as you can in AA and NA and GAA and Overeaters and Sex Addicts Anonymous and all this stuff. And it's a puppy. And all of the topics, all of the things you can learn from me, you can learn from anybody. You look up, if anyone looks up to me, all I gotta tell them is just remember I'm human too. I'm not perfect. Chris, it literally beeps every time you do that.
We know.
Um, being told that I'm a role model. I had a guy in my AA group, my home group. He told me, so right before I left Illinois and I went down to New Mexico, maybe 6 months prior, I had started 2 new meetings at that group. It was a Tuesday and a Friday 5:15 meeting. I ended up chairing both the meetings. One was a big book study, the other was just a meeting that I ran. And one of the guys who came to the meetings told me, I think at his 1 year, maybe 2 year mark, that I had a huge impact on his sobriety. And I didn't even know. I was just being me. I was just spreading a message that I thought people needed to hear. I was just telling my story. That caught me off guard and blew me out of the water. Like, you don't realize how many people you impact just on a day-to-day basis, never mind being in the face of a special community group. And anybody a part of this group, imagine the impact we have on people when they see us at the gathering. If we ever start going to shows or doing our own mini gatherings or campouts or whatever the case is, retreats, imagine if we give that to our community or even expand into the larger community, how many people we could impact. And that's where I get caught up, is I see how amazing and how much we impact this community, and I get caught up in wanting to help others even more than what we're doing now, wanting to expand into outside of the Juggalo community, and it's that's where I get caught up. But being a role model, if you let it, it can get to you. I don't let it. I just keep being me. There's one thing that I've learned. No matter what anybody thinks of me, good or bad, it will never affect my life. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be happy, and that is all that matters. Anybody in this group, anybody who watches this, you can look up to me. I have no problem with that. But don't expect me to do stuff that will impress you. I'm just another human being who's living their life and who happens to give you motivation to do better in yours.
Your hand is still up.
Oh, that was just to annoy Frank.
I just like putting pressure on Frank because he is the role model.
I mean, he basically used 1,000 more words for basically the same thing I was sharing before he got in the room. Because he's better vernacular, like, because I was saying the same thing. Like, I didn't really have like role models growing up. Like, you had a couple people, and I didn't really find any until I got sober, and those were the people that just inspired me. And I think, like, you don't realize, like you're saying, like, I had like 30 or 40 people tell me happy birthday. That just lets me know, like, I am thought of in their life, which is a rare thing. And all I do is just be myself where I'm at, wherever I'm at. Like, that's who I am. Like, I'm sober. This is what I do. This is how I live, and I'm my authentic self. And I think coming from the backgrounds we come through from, and then just living a different way of life and being your authentic self while doing it is the motivation and the inspiration for the newcomer. Um, and I think that's the best thing you can do is not you're not changing for anybody but yourself. And if you choose to change certain traits because they weren't good for you and become better here, people that have been through those similar things will look up to you because they were trying to work on those things themselves that you overcame, you know? And that's still just the weirdest feeling, though, to have somebody like tell them, like, oh, you impacted me, or you helped me here, or I look up to you. Like, it's the same thing when I first got sober, having somebody who told me they loved me without wanting something from me, or that they cared about me without wanting something from me, like, gave me the heebie jeebies, you know? And the longer I stay sober and the more happens, it doesn't give me the heebie jeebies, but it's just like, it puts in retrospect when all those days where you feel like not enough is going on, when you do have those days where people are coming out the woodworks, it puts your mind in retrospect that you are doing more, even if you don't see what all you're doing in that amount of time, because everything in life tends to be hindsight. Kind of like the story, it's all hindsight.
Yeah, I dig it.
The only other place where I've ever felt really comfortable, it is in the rooms of like AA and NA and stuff. Besides like the Juggalo community, um, even like as a sober individual, I don't really necessarily fit in anyway, so I'm not going to be changing up for anybody. I'm just unapologetically me, and it seems to be working out for me nowadays. So yeah, definitely. I feel what Frank was saying. I'm not going to change the way I am for people to like try to fit into their narrative, right? So yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
ultimately, we're always going to be who we are, but the goal always is to be better than who we were 10 years ago.
exactly.
Right.
When I tell people stories of me 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they meet people that knew me 5, 6, 7 years ago, they go, I can't believe that shit. I mean, I changed a lot of defects or bad things I used to do or mindsets that I had. That's what people look up to. But I'm still me when it comes to clothing, music, whatever. I am just a improved version of who I was always was, that was covered with the drugs and the alcohol.
So when I didn't say I wasn't willing to change for people. I have a different thought process on that. I don't change specifically for people, but I am open to the criticism from others to tell me that I'm doing something wrong.
Right,
But
right,
what I did say was, don't sit there and have basically, don't sit there if I'm your role model, don't sit there and have expectations of me of doing something spectacular and then me not meeting your expectations. That's not on me. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to sit there and try to impress you or do something magical to make you want to look up to me. I'm
right.
just going to be me. And I feel like there's some people who get caught up in that. And I don't think I've ever really caught up in that. Like I've met people that I looked up to, like famous people, and yeah, I get starstruck, and I don't talk like I get my mental capacity gets shut down and stuff like that. But if they do something wrong, I don't hold it against them. They're humans. They deal with shit just like we do. Like Jay's going through some shit right now. Let him go through his shit. Stop putting everybody up on a pedestal. All you're doing if you put people up on a pedestal is causing yourself pain and making you look like a dumbass. You're not helping the world. You help the world by having some compassion and some humility.
But Frank, you build the pedestals.
I don't build shit.
I've seen you do it.
I've never built a pedestal in my life,
I've seen you build shit.
but I don't build pedestals for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
I've
getting
seen
too
you be
serious for you,
tall.
Chris?
Yeah, I had to learn that lesson the hard way, and that was just about like inner circle of friends, like holding them because I looked up to them as an inspiration. Like I had to learn that year two of recovery. Like everybody is human, everybody falls short, and I can't hold this person to this regard because if their character doesn't line up to my view of them, then I'm gonna catch a resentment over it. Like, you can't do that, I learned that one the hard way. And I mean, really, we're all in a battle if you're anybody who's recovering from drug, alcohol, mental health, whatever, we're all in the same battle. So all we're supposed to be doing is to be here for each other to the best of our abilities. That's the whole point of it. Because nobody does this completely alone, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not fair to hold other people to the standards that you set for them. And I feel like that's part of the process of going through 12 steps or just sobriety in general is you can't expect anything from anybody. You just have to accept what they have.
Well, I mean, most people that even give the 12 steps a try, it takes them a multitude of times to even get long-term sobriety at best. And some people never give it. They just get it. They just have bouts of it and their life gets better. And then that, stuff happens and it's life and that's what it is. But they know where the answer is when shit gets hard again and they come back around and they build it up and then they burn it down. And if anything, like I expect the ultra wealthy the ultra wealthy or people with lots of funds to probably fuck up more than I did because I fucked up with having to rob, steal, cheat to get everything I needed to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter because addiction, alcoholism doesn't discriminate on your status quo in life. It doesn't matter if you're homeless or if you're a billionaire. It affects everybody the same way. Just it's easier for some than others. And it doesn't matter your status because we're all equals in that playing field of the mental obsession and the spiritual problems going on um, that make us do the things we tend to do. And we're all, when we find a 12-step program, are trying to do something to better ourselves. So we're all equals in that regard.
So like what Chris was just saying, it's like taking someone else's inventory when you try to like put your stuff on other people, right? So like my addict alcoholic mind has this like little spreadsheet that I would like everybody else to fucking follow, right? And it's like my agenda and like if and I tend to like always have that mindset of like I would like this person to do it my way or do things a certain way. And I think a lot of people have that whether they're an alcoholic or not, but I don't think that's like obviously that's not the right way to go. like he was saying, Jay was having what's going on with him now, and like the shit that you see online, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. Like these like juggalos or people that are supposed to be like, you know, fans are like putting all this like judgment and casting all this shit upon him, dude. He's just another human being, like struggling like everybody else, right? So yeah, I feel that.
Exactly. Let him go through his shit, and we're already here. And if he wants to come for help, that's our job as anybody in sobriety, no matter if it's him or just the next person coming in and looking for help. That's our whole mission, is to help somebody else. But you can't really help anybody unless they come looking for the help.
Right.
Like it never tends to work out when you force your shit on them, you know. Every time sobriety was forced on me, I definitely didn't conform to it.
Yeah, like if he joined our meeting like tomorrow or whatever, you know, like I would just, you know, it'd be fucking super dope, but it'd be like he'd be treated just like everybody else, you know what I mean? Like we would just help him to the best of our ability. That'd be, you know, my main goal is just that'd be to help, you know, and share the stories that would hopefully help him, you know, and those fucking haters that are just putting their shit out there, like, you know, what if he did like die and like take his life and whatnot, man? That'd be the fucking worst. Like, and then how
Would
would
be
they
it.
feel? You know what I mean? Like,
It
come
would
on.
be another Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, like we were talking about.
Like,
Yeah,
and
100%.
I think, I mean, when you have that money to keep going, that makes it even harder to when your life is functional to any alcoholic or addict. Because I think Frank was one of the more functional ones for most of his story, besides the DUI thing. The more functional you are, it seems like the harder it is to realize you have a problem. And I was completely dysfunctional, and it still took me 18 years and all the consequences in the world to realize and accept that I had a freaking problem.
100%. I was up until like my bottom. I was successful in my job. I have a family. I have kids. Like shit was going good. I have bought and sold a few houses. Like, you know, in my mind, I was like, I don't have a fucking problem. What the hell? And then the first time I went into a treatment center, I was like, I'm not like these people, right? That was my first thought. Like, yeah, it's like, no, I'm fucking totally like these people. And yeah, man, it was a realization that, like you said, doesn't discriminate. It's everybody equally.
Yep, it's all the same mental, spiritual, emotional type of shit going on. That's why, like, listening to somebody's story, like, it really is relating with those feelings and those struggles, not the scenario, because everybody's scenario is so different. Even though there's common stuff in it, it's the emotional, mental stuff that we go through that is so relatable.
Right.